Hey, I want to try something a little different today. It's been 40 days since the Human Countermove was released. Progress has begun on producing the audiobook, and I just figured today I'd release the first chapter of the book. I'm just going to dive in. 1. Just a game. Rank 83. A space opened in the queue. I closed the gap, steel panels flexing under my step. A stream of line players stretched off into the distance. Security was never like this at a line event. A rush job hall tossed in front of the hotel's main doors? What were the minds thinking? Probably had something to do with that new directive. No one spoke in the metal tunnel. Every noise was echoed back and amplified into incoherence. I glanced behind me. 2 bodies back, a hand waved in my direction. Jamie. I mouthed hello back. She was a strong player, better than I was these days. She had on a dark green dress I'd never seen, and her brown hair curled with the precision of a recent salon visit. A big change from her regular loose shirts, capris, and ponytails. Her eyes gleamed with life. Maybe she was finally over that insomnia. I'd have to ask her. A new gap formed. I hurried to close it. In the wait, my mind began to wander. I used to relish moments like this. Every idle second was a chance to review and revise my game plan. Not these days. Let one of the players with a chance to win do that. I was well on my way out of the top 100. May as well have been retired. 30 might seem young for retirement, but when all you've done is lose for over a year, it's best to be honest with yourself. The queue rounded a corner, and the Greater Charters Hotel entrance came into view. An extravagant place with a penchant for gold trim. A full-body scanner in front of the lobby doors ruined the luxury aesthetic, which was well enough considering I was wearing jeans. A guard's voice echoed down the tunnel. "Step inside, arms out, legs shoulder-width apart." He was the same guy the Greater Charters Hotel always used, but the uniform was different. Bulletproof vest, at least 3 weapons, a wire running to his ear. It was a whole lot of security for a board game. At last, I reached the front. "Step inside, arms out, legs shoulder-width apart." His voice was tired, and he didn't even glance at me, his eyes locked on a screen. I followed his instructions. The booth was quiet and compact. My jeans kept my legs from reaching shoulder-width apart, but the guard said nothing. He pressed something in the corner of his screen. There was a momentary compression. The air felt oddly still. No more than a second. A 3D scan of my face appeared on screen. Almost perfect. He had the same short black hair, receded hairline, and beginnings of a beard in need of a shave. Even had my smile, though the eyes looked a little dead. A little darker brown than I remembered, too. Maybe that's just what being 30 was like. A sweet automated voice pumped through the speakers. "Welcome, Zook Solensen." "You're good." I nodded my thanks and proceeded through the double doors. The lobby opened to an enormous conference hall. I always wondered how many rooms a hotel had to sacrifice to get ceilings to go that high. The room went on, filled with row after row of sleek black tables, like a great hall for gaming. Figures they'd spare no expense for the global playoffs. It was one of the biggest tournaments there was. Players flown in from all over to represent their countries. Best of the best, all here. These days I'd be lucky to land in the middle of the pack. The venue was still empty. Mostly walked by arbiters. You could always spot an arbiter, the best-dressed people at the tournament. Maybe it was easier to tell someone they've lost when you're wearing a suit. The pre-event instructions had emphasized the importance of good grooming and formal dress. Hopefully the polo would make up for the jeans. "Zook Solensen?" A woman in a black pantsuit approached, touchscreen in hand. Definitely an arbiter. "That's me." The arbiter scrolled through some list. After a moment, she glanced up. "Follow me." Her feet carried her at incredible speed. I jogged just to keep up. Every couple steps, we passed another dozen seats. In front of each, a folded white square listed a player's name. A few popped out to me. Alexandria. Oliver. The world champion Bergamaschi. My foot caught on the carpet. The arbiter barely glanced back. These were the best in the world, here to represent their province. Here I was, hoping to go home with a single win and a free lunch. Maybe coming at all was a mistake. The arbiter stopped 3/4 of the way down the hall. A little further down, at the end of the hall, the hotel had set up a big platform overlooking the tables. We were close enough I could see some of the empty seats. They looked a lot more cushioned than the ones for players. VIPs. Might explain the security. The arbiter turned sharply and led me between the rows of tables to my seat. Row 6, position 5. She came to a stop and pointed at a straight-back black chair. "This is your seat, Mr. Solensen. If you need anything else before the game, please feel free to reach out to one of the arbiters." I looked past the arbiter. No one was within 100 feet. "We're around. If you have a pressing issue during a game, pause the timer and raise your hand. Bathrooms are in the corner. Any questions?" She spoke at a breakneck speed, but I was pretty sure I'd gotten it. "None, thank you." I took my seat and the arbiter hurried away. Like every other seat, there was a little folded note bearing my name. Zook Solensen, Solmar Province. My eyes narrowed. There was something off about the label. I grabbed a name card one seat to my left. The color was different. Mine had a subtle yellow hue. I grabbed the name card to my right. All the others matched. Another sign I wasn't supposed to be here. "Zook!" I turned quickly at the sound of my name. "You didn't tell me you were playing." Jamie approached quickly, in a rush to keep up with her arbiter. I knew there was a reason I'd been thinking about her. I spun the name card opposite mine around. Jamie Mendez, Reen Rum Province. This was going to be a tough first match. I didn't even know I was playing until last week. I returned each name card to its original position. Pretty sure I'm a replacement. Jamie sat down. "Don't do that. You were a good player." I leaned back in my chair and stared at her. We both knew I was past my prime. Her eyes narrowed. "How can you be sure?" I slid the name card across the table. "Look, different paper. I wasn't in the original batch." Jamie lifted the name card to her glasses and scrutinized it carefully. She had always been big on details. Different font, too. They could have lost the original. She slid my name card back to me. "There's more. My invitation came directly from the coach." Jamie's lips pressed into a thin line. She was getting convinced. "You know the lineup for the tournament? Released 6 hours after I accepted my offer. Come on, I'm a replacement." Jamie raised her hands in surrender. "So you're a replacement. You're convinced?" A smirk crept onto her lips. "I am, and that means you haven't strategized with your team." "Always looking for the advantage, Jamie. It's what made us good rivals." I shook my head. "We all play our own games. What's there to strategize? It's not like they expect much of me." She leaned slightly forward. "Maybe you should throw the game. Teach him a lesson." I chuckled. She was probing for advantages, but she'd never forgive me for a free win. One more and she'd have a winning record against me. Then again, the team captain probably wouldn't even notice. Even one win today would probably be categorized as an overperformance. We chatted for a while about nothing. Showing up to all the same tournaments means either a lifelong hatred or a lifelong friendship. Neither of us were good enough to waste time hating each other. That didn't stop her from making every effort to wipe the floor with me, but it was nice to see a familiar face. The hall went from empty to filled in no time. I did a sweep of the hundreds of faces for anyone else I recognized, then noticed Jamie's eyes were locked on the front of the room. A crowd of well-dressed visitors were taking their seats on the platform. As one entered, Jamie sat up a little straighter. "Maya's here," she whispered. "Who?" I squinted into the crowd on the platform. In all the movement, one stood still, shaking hands and smiling at every person passing by. She was a beacon of positive energy in a short body. Her hair was somewhere between blonde and gray. She wore a mauve pantsuit. Human autonomy activist. She convinced the mines to pass the new directive. The new directive. The special tournament. I'd read it once, but knew I'd never qualify. It explained the extra security. The elite were here to watch our games live, to pick out potential champions. "People are taking that seriously?" I asked. Jamie looked back at me with a raised eyebrow. "The opportunity for a line player to join the three? The chance to be a voice for humanity on the council? We're all taking it seriously." She leaned in close. "Zook, you and I are among the 100 players good enough to win this thing." I adjusted in my chair and picked at a piece of loose thread. "We're not the best in the world, Jamie. We're not even in the top 10. Jamie said nothing, but her furrowed brow was enough to tell me her feelings. The lights dimmed. My teammates finally arrived, all at once taking their seats. Table by table, soft blue LEDs flicked on, illuminating 1,000 line players' faces. A glass wall rose up between Jamie and I, and a message appeared in the virtual space. Connected. Good luck, Zook. I could barely make out Jamie's face through the holographic separator, but whispered my thanks. All at once, the screens updated. A 12 by 12 grid of blue squares appeared on the table in front of me and in the image on the glass. Back when I was teaching full-time, students always told me their biggest fear in a game of Line wasn't playing poorly. It was the moment the game started. An empty board. An infinite garden of choices from which players pruned a single game. But those were novices. I didn't see the infinite anymore. I saw my plan, and I saw my opponent. Another figure rushed past me to a seat at the end of the table. Someone was always late. 2 little clocks appeared in the corner of the screen. One for me, one for Jamie. Each read 60 minutes. Looked like the tournament was starting on time. A gong played through the room, and the timer started ticking down. The objective in a game of Line, leadership, and near-range emulation was simple. Use troops to attack your opponent. Build walls to slow them down. Each squadron was represented by a set of 6 little blue dots. With some good strategy, a smart player could build a base, capture the board, and take their opponent's command post. A dumb player could charge in and win in a few moves, but that was rarer. The graphics were simple. Red dots, blue dots, a few lines representing the walls, but the complexity was near infinite. I ordered a wall be placed at the bottom of the screen, near my command post, then pressed submit. My clock stopped ticking. Jamie's continued to count down. She was still deciding. After a few seconds, Jamie's clock stopped too, and our moves were revealed. A blue wall appeared where I had ordered it, the beginnings of a base. Jamie had brought out her first squadron, 6 dots with the power to tear my base apart. This would be an aggressive game. I'd hoped for that. Jamie was the stronger player these days. Let her lead the attack. Her squadron could only move 1 square at a time, so even with her extra initiative, I had time to get my side of the board organized before she hit me. At move 4, I deployed my first squadron. They took cover behind the walls and waited for the red troops to reach them. Jamie called her first squadron back to her base. Not much point in attacking a well-defended position. But then again, she had already forced me into defense. By move 7, the basic footprint of the Lost Star formation had taken shape in my base. It kind of looked like a spiky porcupine centered around my command post. Over the years, I had leaned on it more than a few times. Lots of cover, lots of mobility for squadrons. It tended to get the job done. On move 12, Jamie's squadron count climbed to 5. I continued the development of my base, waiting for the attack. 6 moves later, I glanced at the clock. I had burned 15 minutes. Jamie had spent 21. I input another move and thought on Jamie's comments about the new directive. Did the other pros really believe it? Win a few games of Line and get put in charge of the government? It was ridiculous. Add in all the amateurs that thought they had a chance and the whole thing was a circus. Even if the offer was good, it wasn't meant for middling players like me. The directive tournament was meant for the best, for players like Bergamashi. I pulled back from the board. As much as I respected Jamie, my head really wasn't in it. I was thinking about the next match. Not much had been able to distract me from it the last few days. A gust of cold wind blew my way. An air conditioner had just turned on. Jamie had already input her move. Time was ticking down. I needed to focus. Her first squadron poked its head out from behind cover. A fight was just what I needed. I stretched my fingers, then input the attack orders. On the left, my little blue dots moved up through one of the Lost Star's points and took firing positions. On the right, the troops waited patiently. 9 squadrons emerged from Jamie's base, a proper army. The moment they came within 3 tiles of my walls, I gave the order for my troops to open fire. Gold-yellow flashes flew out from both sides. With every hit, a dot faded from the board. At the end of the turn, I had lost 5 troops. Jamie had dropped considerably more. Still, she pressed on. A steady stream of weapons fire down the left side tore through the Lost Star. My troops were sitting ducks. She closed in, lurching ever closer to the center of my base, and more importantly, abandoning her own. I ordered the counteroffensive. 3 squadrons pushed out of my base and charged across the map. Through the holographic separator, I could see Jamie's eyes widen. Both sides were attacking. Both sides were defending. It was a precarious position. A single misplaced piece could end the game. Just as I had hoped, a chance to put skill against skill. The next move rolled in. Jamie's squadron ceased fire and turned away from the mangled remains of my base. I blinked repeatedly. That wasn't right. They were retreating. No. I craned my neck closer to the screen. Not a retreat, a pivot. She was coming for my counteroffensive. I realized my mistake in an instant. I had forgotten to wall up the center of the board. Instead of a 2-pronged skirmish, we were 2 armies facing each other in no man's land. I counted out Jamie's troops. 6 more. No way out. My heart sank. In an open field, there was no room for clever tactics. Just flat numbers. Weapons fire lit up the screen. In a single turn, 3 of my squadrons were wiped from the board. In exchange, Jamie had only lost 4 tiny red dots. I put my head in my hands. Every little sound in the hall bothered me. 100 players tapping at their screens, coughs and sneezes that made the whole place feel like a hospital, whispers from the politicians in the viewing gallery. The game was over, but I needed to see it through. I ordered a retreat, but it was already too late. A flurry of golden light erased what was left of the blue army. I took in the rest of the board. My base could hold up for a few more turns, maybe even rebuff the attack, but against a pro like Jamie, defeat was inevitable. My hand shook as I pressed resign. The board vanished and the separator lowered. Jamie had a quizzical look on her face, as if she was surprised it was over. We shook hands over a final image of the board, projected onto the flat of the table. That was a dangerous plan, going for a flank on my army like that. I paused a moment, confused at her words. It was supposed to be a counterattack. Jamie held a thoughtful look, her eyes jumping back and forth, the sign of a player calculating moves. You were missing a few walls. Yeah. My chest felt heavy. It was an amateur mistake. But for me, mistakes like that were becoming the rule rather than the exception. Jamie grabbed her bag off the floor. Who are you facing next? I let out a nervous cough and reached into my pocket, pulling out a copy of my schedule. Jamie glanced at it and let out a laugh. Bergamashi? I nodded. How did you get him? I shrugged. The coach wanted one of his lowest-tiered players to face the champion, manage the balance of wins and losses. She gave me a pitying look. Cannon fodder, huh? Sorry, Zook. That looked to be the story of the tournament for me. A last-second replacement set up to lose. Hey, maybe that's why the last guy dropped out. Directive 2149-M-13-A on reintegrating human voice in government. Readable title appended by the Mind of Communications and Influence. The following directive was presented and voted upon unanimously during session 1034 of the year 2149. Deliberations extended for 11 minutes and 19 seconds. Transcripts have been sealed. Objectives, ordered by anticipated impact. Improved perception of human representation in government. Reduce domestic countergovernmental actions. Reduce foreign counterstate actions. Produce live entertainment. Begin. Upon ratification of this directive, a voluntary line tournament will be made available to all citizens. The details of the tournament are as follows. 1. The rules of the game will follow the 2088 line rulebook. 2. Opponents for this activity will be chosen from a list composed of A. The Mind of Communications and Influence. B. The Mind of Manufacturing and Distribution. C. The Mind of Strategy and Warfare. 3. Should a citizen achieve 3 victories without suffering a defeat, said citizen will be awarded membership on the nation's Legislative Council. 4. At least 1 match will be conducted in a non-simulated environment. 5. This directive will be terminated after 1 player claims victory. Competitors may join the tournament by filing a voluntary activity admittance form and entering activity code J199LI. End. A note from the mind of communications and influence. Hey folks, I know there's a whole lot of directives coming down these days. I just wanted to take a moment and really highlight this one. For the last few months, the other minds and I have been having coffee and chat sessions with human autonomy activist Maya Torres. In case you don't know her, first off, you are missing out. She is a blast and has made me spit out my coffee laughing on more than one occasion. But secondly, she is one of several leaders of the human autonomy movement. And after a whole lot of chatting, we ended up putting this thing together. Here's the rundown. We want a living, breathing human being on the council. But we also need to stay true to our virtues, the ones that define our nation. We don't want to be just another country plagued with corrupt politicians driving unrest and fear. So we're being a little picky. I know what you're thinking. Line? How can that game be a right tool to choose a fourth mind? Well, let me tell you about the candidate we're looking for. We want someone who isn't just a speaking head and isn't just a vote. The person that joins this council has got to be a deep thinker. Someone who can go head to head with any one of us and come out on top. Somebody ready to make a difference. Here's the thing. If you challenge us, we won't hold back. Even the best in the world are going to have a pretty tough time looking at you, Bergamashi. Our models project the only people who have any chance of winning this thing are professional line players. I know, shocker. But anyone is free to throw their hat in the ring. We love a good surprise. So there you go. Take us out to lunch, challenge us to a game of line, maybe start running the government. Good luck to everyone, and if you have the skill, we've got a chair waiting for you. P.S. No, there is not a punishment for losing. It's just a game, people. Mind of communications and influence.